Hello, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and I'm going to show you DeliverPoint. So DeliverPoint is a SharePoint permissions management tool that makes it much easier for SharePoint administrators and also content owners to be able to report and manage permissions. We're going to first of all take a look at some of the contextual permission options that you may be able to perform as a site owner. Now, what you'll notice here inside this particular SharePoint team site is up in the right-hand corner, we've got some DeliverPoint options, and one of those is to discover permissions, and that's where we're going to start off. So I'm going to click onto Discover Permissions, and what you'll see is I immediately get a permission report of all of the users that will have permissions to this particular SharePoint team site. So I can see each username of each user that has permissions. I can see the permission level that those users would have, and over on the right hand side here I can see how that user was permissioned. So some of these users may have been granted permissions directly or as a member of a SharePoint group, but others like Demo User 4 here, Demo User 4 has been granted permissions because Demo User 4 is a member of an Active Directory security group called Accounts Payable, and Accounts Payable is nested within inside of a SharePoint group. So no matter how a user has been permissioned, if they do have permissions to this particular SharePoint team site, they're going to show up inside this report. And from here we can go through and sort, and we can filter on different permission levels. So if I was interested in just a particular type of permission level, we could display all of the users that have that permission level, and we could also filter on users and how those users are permissioned as well. Now let's have a look at some more interesting reports. I'm going to close this dialog, and we're going to look at something called a sharing link report. So if you're not familiar with sharing links come about by clicking onto a folder or a file and choosing the sharing option, and you could share a file or a folder with somebody that's external to your organization, and that could be anybody with the link, or it could be specific people. So by clicking onto the sharing links report, we can see any objects within inside this site where a sharing link has been enabled. And you'll see here there's two particular files, one of them named Lightning Tools Biggest Secrets, and we've also got a sales brochure, which perhaps I'm less concerned about. The sales brochure has been shared with people in my organization, and they have contribute permissions, and I can see who inside the organization would have access to that particular file. The Lightning Tools Biggest Secrets has been shared with anybody with the link, so anybody with the link can edit, and the default permission for that is contribute. And this is something that I can't expand, since it is literally anybody that would have the link could go through and edit that document. So what I'm going to do is basically go through and select that, because I'm not happy about that, and choose the Actions menu and come under the sharing links, delete the sharing links. And we can execute that immediately. So those sharing links have now been removed, and we can go through and access that report once again. And this time we can only see the one item where there is a sharing link. So also going into a list or library, we can contextually report against multiple objects from here as well. And one of the challenges with SharePoint out of the box, you'll notice that we can go through and of course share, or we can manage access on a selected file or folder. But as soon as we select more than one file or folder, those options disappear. And of course, inside a real world environment, we're going to have lots of different folders, lots of different documents. So one of the things we can do with DeliverPoint is actually select as many folders and files as we like, and then we can go through to discover permissions, and we'll produce a permission report on every single object that I selected. Now, one of the things you'll notice in here is we've got the name of the item with everybody who's got permissions to that item. So those in full color have unique permissions, and we can go through and select that and manage those permissions by going to the Actions menu here. So it might be that we want to transfer permissions away from somebody that has permissions to this particular file or folder and assign those permissions to somebody else, or we may just want to revoke permissions away from a particular person. And of course, we could also export this report to Excel as well, where we can go through and manage it in a bit more detail. But filtering this report is also useful. So we can go through and filter on a particular user, and for that I'll select Demo User 4, and here we can see what permissions Demo User 4 has to every single file or folder I selected. So these are some of the contextual permission report options that you have. Now also inside the site is a link to the main DeliverPoint page, and that's where we can centrally manage permissions if we want to. And that's more suitable to perhaps site collection administrators, but also farm administrators as well. So they can come into this dialog here, and if you like, you can make it full screen or keep it inside the dialog view, and there's several different views available, so we can go through and see our hub sites, and under the hub sites we can drill into those hub sites to see each of the different associated sites and determine who has permissions to each of the different objects inside those sites. So if I wanted to produce a report, for example, on the North America sales as well as the Europe sales site, we could go through and select those sites, and they become the scope for my report. And from the reports menu here, we can go through and discover permissions or view the sharing links, also the unique objects such as lists, libraries, folders, etc. And we can also compare permissions between those sites as well. So when we hit the discovery permissions, for example, we can see who's got permissions to both of those sites. We could also go through and do a discover permissions advanced, and that allows me to also show any subsites or anything basically that has unique permissions inside those scopes. And we can also go through and do things like compare permissions, which will tell me what the differences are between these two sites and the different people or groups that have access to them. The other things we can do from here is display unique objects. So once again, that will show anything that has broken permission inheritance inside those selected sites there. So that's the hub sites view. We've also got a Teams view, so I can see all of the different Microsoft Teams and also the channels inside those teams. And clicking the drop down again, you'll also see that we've got a classic site collection view. So as we go through and expand the different sites inside these site collections, we'll be able to see each of the different subsites and of course the lists and libraries that belong to those subsites as well. And whilst we're in here, we can go through and select those objects, even if they're lists or libraries, and discover the permissions on those objects as well. So the other view that I want to show you is a accounts view, and using the accounts view, we can look at a particular user. So that user, we can start to type their account name, select that account, and then we can run this unique permissions report. And that will tell me everything that I need to know about that account, if there was any unique permissions assigned to that account, but notice that I can also determine which Active Directory security groups this user is a member of, the SharePoint groups that the user is a member of, and also determine if they are a site collection administrator or not. And if we want to, if this user was perhaps going to leave the organization, we can then go through and transfer permissions away from this account to somebody else. So everything we've seen here is inside SharePoint, but also notice that you can go to Microsoft Teams, and inside Teams you can access DeliverPoint as a personal tab as well, and that will give you the same access. And when you access DeliverPoint inside Teams, it will default to that Teams view, so we can go through and manage our teams and our channels, but we can also go through and manage SharePoint as well by flicking to something like the hub sites view. And we get exactly the same options in here, so I can go through and once again discover permissions, or we can check for dead accounts or unlicensed users, any external users, etc. And if we wanted to just execute one of those reports, again, we get that showing up inside Microsoft Teams. Okay, I hope you found this a useful insight into DeliverPoint. Of course, if you want to dive in a bit deeper, then we can arrange a demonstration that's specific to your needs, and all you need to do is book a demo, which you can do on the DeliverPoint page. So thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.